everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince. Cap, let's talk about stuff.
What are we going to talk about, Vince?
I think we should do a little follow-up to you and Sarah's video the other day.
Oh, cool. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Captain Logan and
I'm Vince.
And not Sarah.
And not Sarah. I am Vince, not Sarah.
The podcast.
I am Vince, not Sarah, the podcast.
Hello, everyone. We are Geeks Not Sarah.
Sarah's like, I'm a geek. And we're like, why do you sound like Vince?
Last week we did a Geeks Not... Or, I'm sorry, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Sarah and I did a Geeks Not Nerds about how to get your girlfriend into fandoms, and we mostly boiled it down to you don't get your girlfriend into fandoms. You leave it open, and if that works out, great, and if not, that might be okay too. And if you haven't seen that video, you can go see how Sarah and I kind of wound up on it. But Vince wanted to kind of get his 2 cents in on this. And Vince, what's the question for today?
See, the idea is how do you find balance in a relationship as a geek? How does your geekdom fit into a relationship? So,
not so much how do you introduce other people to fandoms, and I think you and I have even touched on this before with just friendships, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's important to know who you are. It's important to be who you are, who you want to be.
Not to quote Lion King or anything.
It's important to Hakuna Matata. And be
remember who you are.
Remember what, you scary monkey?
No, not the monkey.
Oh, that wasn't.
No. It's Mufasa.
Oh yeah,
Dead Mufasa in the clouds. The ghost. Remember, it's Hamlet.
It's James Earl Jones or whoever that voice was. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was.
God, it's been years since I've seen.
It was James Earl Jones.
I think it was my favorite movie as a kid.
Yeah,
but
you must have really loved it.
I've written that same joke into a play.
Anyway.
Oh, what's her face? Oh, you must have loved her. So that brings us full circle, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So I think that sometimes geeks think that they need to find... I think geeks will sometimes jump at the first opportunity that they get. Does that make sense?
Yeah, with the unfortunate notion that just because they have labeled themselves geek or nerd or what have you, that they don't expect to necessarily ever find companionship, and so when someone or something
a watermelon.
I just thought that was funny. So when someone comes along that shows the least bit interest in them, they sometimes have this. And I'm not trying to put people in a bubble. I just think that there are certainly people like this, and I've known them, and so I'm not saying all geeks are like this. So when I say they, I just mean there are people.
Yeah. The proverbial they. This group of people exists.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and I'm not. I don't want to put. I don't want to put labels on people and put any of our listeners into a box or anything like that. I'm just saying that there are people that fall in this category who think that because they've labeled themselves geek or because they think society has labeled themselves that if they don't jump at the first opportunity, they won't get another one.
Yeah.
And
so
yeah,
I think maybe it's important to say that a geek. We're not saying that geeks inherently have this problem. We're saying that there are geeks that have social skills, and there are geeks that do not have social skills.
And then there's whatever we are.
Yeah, this weird amalgamation of people that you probably shouldn't like, but do anyway.
Really?
I don't know.
Wow, you sound as uncomfortable as the people we're talking about.
I have low self-esteem. Well, I think part of being a geek is, it's not a word.
Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast.
Yeah, I think part of being a geek is there is this inherent low self-esteem that goes into it, and I think that there is this for a person who is socially inadequate. I think that there is also a counterpart that is socially abusive or socially controlling.
Really, you think it's inherent?
I think that there is inherent in geekdom, that it's not necessarily for all geeks. I think that within geekdom, this stuff naturally arises.
I see, yeah, that it's more prone to happen there than it is with, say, sports fans or...
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not going to be socially fragile if you're standing at a sports game cheering and, clapping hands with people or whatever you call it, high fives.
Well, sure. I mean, and a lot of that, of course, I think has to do with people's idea of social acceptability. You know, if 20,000 people go to a ball game versus the amount of people who go to a comic book convention, it feels more valid socially.
And there's a part of going to a ball game where you are yourself, but you're a fan, in my head anyway. And if you're going to a comic book convention, you're not necessarily representing yourself, if that makes sense. Sometimes you're under a costume and it makes you feel more comfortable. Sometimes you're...
I would make the case that the same can be true for sports fans. I
suppose the guys that paint themselves orange and wear cheese on their heads.
But even the people who just put on a jersey and go, I think that people are...
That's a good point.
I think that it's the old adage, and I talked about this a lot, of course, when I reviewed The Mask. The masks we wear, wherever we happen to be, we like to look like we're a certain kind of person sometimes. You know what I mean? You know, yeah. you put on your game face if you were, right.
You have a terrific point.
I have known people who turn into an entirely different person when they're at particular venues.
You know, if you put on that jersey and you go out to that sporting game, sound like an old guy who came from a country where sports don't exist.
Yeah.
But if you go out to some kind of sporting event...
Are you your own grandpa?
You are. As Ray Stevens said, yes, I am. Oh. No, that's not true. That's kind of gross. Anyway, there is something wrong
when the
with
Muppets
did
song.
But
sorry.
Incest for the whole family.
Well, okay. Well, go ahead, Vince.
Anyway, let's get to something that's not quite as disturbing.
No, you were talking about a sporting game.
I think when you go to a sporting event, you put on that jersey, you paint yourself up to the warrior style or whatever you're going to do,
right.
And you're essentially saying, I am part of this crowd. I am this mass creature that is being formed on this side of the stands, and we are fighting against or cheering against that other side of the stands. So you are choosing to be part of a community. When you go to a convention, I suppose you're also choosing to be part of a community. And for some people, it's a very personal thing. You don't socialize. You just go there. You meet certain people. Like, oh, I really want to meet Stan Lee or Jonathan Hickman or whatever. And you get.
I think there's social events in the same way, though. You bring friends with you to a convention. You bring friends with you to a sporting event. You know, I mean, I think that there's more camaraderie sometimes that comes with people who don't know each other at a sporting event. But I think you know what I mean, because they immediately feel like they have something in common because they're wearing the same colors.
Yeah.
But I think that also it's different when you go to an event to watch something occur versus going to a place that's inherently there for you to, listen to seminars and to buy things. They are very different experiences. And but I think that on the whole, this is the same. Just the idea that I'm presenting of you go to a place and you put on a face. You become a sports fan. You go to a concert and you become a concert goer.
Mm-hmm. I think
I'm not sure there's. I guess my point. I'm sorry. I guess my point is I don't think that there's. I'm not sure there's that much of a difference between the kind of face you put on to be that kind of a fan versus the kind of face you put on to be a comic book fan. I think the difference is, or a whatever fan. Mm-hmm. The geek. I think the difference is just how other people perceive it and how you perceive yourself based on how other people, or how you think other people perceive you.
I think this is a good place to really tie it into the topic here.
Be a good idea 9 minutes in.
That's probably true. But I think and we've talked about this before, the difference between, or the similarities between sports and comics and the way of fandoms. But when you go to a sporting event, you can say, I am proud of what I'm doing, and there's no real field that jumps up and says, what are you doing? Why are you proud of this? But when you're proud of comics, there is something in the back of your mind. And I'm not saying this is for all people. I'm saying this is for part of the geek culture. There is something in the back of your mind
that
says
social stigmas.
I'm going to be judged for liking this. And I think that is where this inherent low self-esteem comes from, and this sort of natural subjugation that these people would put themselves underneath in a relationship. And
let me break that down with this example, if I can, Vince. I used to work with people when I still lived in Lawrence before Sarah and I got married, who were obsessive KU fans. Mm-hmm. And if KU lost a big game, they would all come to work in a bad mood. Mm-hmm. And that was somehow acceptable in that environment. It was like people, if you weren't upset, there was something wrong with you. Mm-hmm. You know, like I can't have a good day. My sports team lost. Imagine if I came in the next day because Enterprise was bad.
Yeah.
Of course, I would have been depressed most of the time, I suppose, if that were the case. But I'm just saying, like let's say that, you know, there was an awful episode of my favorite TV show that happened to be kind of a geeky kind of show, and I came in and I was in a bad mood because they ruined the show, and nobody would have understood that.
You know, I think in that environment, what's interesting is that there's sort of this arrogance that comes along with sports fandom. So
there's definitely an arrogance that comes along with the fandoms we participate in, Vince.
Well, there's arrogance. I think that one's generally knowledge known. Like, I know more about Batman's finger knuckles than you do. It's like, supposed to his toe knuckles. Can you tell me about those? Oh, there's 187 different. I don't really care. Please stop telling me.
Wow.
But
that's as extreme as I could possibly come up with, Vince. Well done. No, you're right though. But sports trivia is huge too. I'm just saying, I'm not sure how different this is.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree that there's not much difference between those things.
It's perceived as different, and I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get into relationships, shall we?
I think that the way that this factors in,
we get stuck on things sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead.
What we're essentially trying to found here is a basis for saying that sometimes geeks are allow themselves to be subjugated in a relationship.
And I think that is a really good point in everything we just said.
Building evidence for why that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, you don't always see yourself the way you really are, and sometimes if you're not careful, it becomes really easy to put yourself in, to label yourself, put yourself in a box, and say I am this way because society sees me this way. And sometimes that can become a vicious cycle, right? Where you will act a certain way because you feel you're expected to, and it becomes second nature. That can be really detrimental to trying to get into a relationship with a person who is not necessarily interested in the geeky kind of stuff you are. Because if you already see yourself that way, you've taken points away from yourself.
Yeah, you're demonstrating that you have lower value, but you're not just you're demonstrating it both to you and the potential relationship person.
Yeah.
So you're essentially, by showing to yourself that you have lower value, you are showing.
I'm sorry, your word choice today is fantastic.
Well, I've done some research on this stuff.
You're a potential relationship person.
Well, I don't want to say, because there's geeky girls out there, so I can't just say that.
No, absolutely, of course.
And of course, we are generally speaking to geeky males, because that's the stereotype that exists in our culture.
Well, that's also let's face it, the majority of the people who watch and listen to us
this is true.
Are men. But let's not pretend. I mean, let's be objective. Let's not pretend that women that geeky girls don't have the same problem sometimes.
Yeah, and we're going to try to apply this generally, but
as much as possible.
If we say her or him, please take that with a grain of salt.
Also, understand we're a couple of guys.
Yeah, we're two dudes.
So naturally we're not trying to be sexist or whatever. We just say what we know. But anyway,
I think that where this subjugation leads people in a relationship is there are two types of people that are going to be attracted to this person who has low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a controller, a person who wants to control every bit of your life and basically turn you into their slave, or you're going to have a mother, somebody that wants to nurture you, and you become her pet.
So you're saying self-esteem is paramount?
I think self-esteem is the most important thing in a relationship. You need to find somebody who thinks that you are as important as you think she is, or you think he is. So I think that if you see that's where
you want to attract somebody who sees themselves who's now we have pronoun issues. You want to attract a person who sees him or herself as on the same level as you in some way.
Yeah,
because otherwise, as you said, you may attract somebody who is interested in you for not the reasons you would like them to be interested in you.
You don't want somebody interested in you that is using you that's using you. I mean, you don't want somebody who thinks it's a good thing to have somebody who constantly is at their beck and call and paints their toenails. Well, that's not necessarily fair. You can paint her toenails, whatever, enjoy. But but it's not fair to say.
Do you speak
get on
from
your
personal
knees.
experience?
No, I've never painted toenails before.
Okay,
but you know, my toenails just don't really take paint that well.
Yeah.
But being a theater guy, I have worn makeup before.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But you know.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway,
I've worn tights.
This is true.
Have you?
I
wore tights in 2 places.
Come to think of it, I've never worn tights.
I also had to wear these obnoxious shoes that had tomatoes on them. Not actual tomatoes, but like these like sewn-on tomatoes, and they had heels, and it was really uncomfortable.
I did dress as an old woman at one point.
It's freaking bouncing tomatoes while I'm walking. It was really uncomfortable.
I dressed as an old woman that talked like this. I was like, "Hey, how you doing? Let's get cooking." It was kind of funny. But
did you wear a hat or a wig?
A wig.
Did you?
Totally wig.
That's great. Was it white?
Gray.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm sorry. What are we talking about?
Anyway, so I think that such random topic change.
Yeah.
I think that a geek, this subjugated geek, is a person who, and why do they get into this relationship here? I mean, let's say that for a second. Why do they fall entrapment to this? Because if they're demonstrating that they have lower values, a person that is going to be attracted to a lower value is somebody who wants to be treated as a person of higher value than their partner, and that's an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
If the person that
yeah, you don't want to date somebody who sees themselves as superior to you.
Yeah, and so
should look for warning signs.
How does geekdom fit into that?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you need to keep in mind that the proverbial you need to keep in mind that geeks, the things that make you a geek are not demonstrators of lower value. They are not these things. Just because you read comics does not mean that you are a lesser human being. It doesn't mean you have anything to be ashamed of. It just means you like a particular medium. And if she has a problem with that, okay, but you don't need her to approve of comic books.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I don't think people should ever put themselves in a position where they have to choose a person over something they like, with the exception of something that's unhealthy. Mm-hmm. You know, an unhealthy obsession. I understand a relationship where your partner may say, it's the drugs or me. Yeah. It's the alcohol or me. If you're spending all your money on comic books and not paying the rent, it's the comic books or me.
See,
but
that's fair.
if it's a healthy if it's just a healthy interest, it's just something you enjoy. That's dangerous.
Yeah, like if you're like, hey, it's Wednesday, comic books are coming out. My favorite one's coming out today. I'm going to go pick them up. What do you think, babe?
And she rolls her eyes.
And she rolls her eyes and goes, "Good God, can you do something that's more fitting of an adult?" You could say to her, "I don't need you tearing me down."
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially the problem that I think a lot of geeks get into, is they jump at the first chance, and then they have this controlling partner. And
I do think that happens, absolutely.
I think I just found the correct word. Partner.
Well done.
Potential partner.
I also wanted to bring up the point that Sarah and I made on this when we did that GNN a couple weeks ago, which is that you also. Wow, what was I going to say? I just blew it.
Well, while you think of that, I'm going to say this.
Yeah, okay.
It's not important that she likes what you like. It's not important if you like Transformers comics and anime. It is not important that she reads it too. But what you need is a person who's not going to resent you for liking it. You need a person who's going to, like, for example, my girlfriend and I, we have differing interests, and I don't need her to like comic books. I don't ever need her to read a comic book.
And she doesn't need you to like classic art.
Yeah, she doesn't need me to like that stuff either. She needs me to be okay with it. She wants me to like it, but that's okay. Like for example, she reads.
And there's always compromise. If you can put an action figure on the wall, then she can put up a picture.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to have compromise.
And
that should be a given.
What's interesting is that in my mind, I've always wanted this big room that's devoted to geekdom, and the rest of the house I wanted kind of be, normalized. When she and I moved in together, she said, I was having this vision where we could have your figures here and our movies and books here, and I said, sounds great. Like, I don't need my figures in the living room. The reason I had figures in the living room in an old apartment is because I didn't have enough shelves.
Space, yeah. I also wanted to. I finally thought of this. I wanted to make the point that Sarah and I made, which is that you don't you really don't want to define yourself by geekdom.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Be a well-rounded person. I mean, there are two ways to look at this, and they're both valid, but they sound contradictory at first glance. The first part is what Vince was talking about, which is don't let anybody tell you how you have to be as long as you're not doing anything unhealthy, right? But the second part of that is you have to give and take also. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can't just be simply a one-way street where I like this and you must be okay with it. If you're going to have a healthy relationship, let's face it, you have to have something in common. And if all you define yourself by is I'm a Batman fan, or I'm a Star Trek fan, or I'm a gamer, etc., etc. If those are your only interests, you know, if that one thing, whatever the big thing is, you're going to have a difficult time having a well-rounded and solid relationship with really anybody who's not just also into the same thing you are. I think I don't want to say a lot of, because I don't know, but I think some guys fall into a trap where they want their, tell me if you agree with this, Vince, where they want their relationship with their girlfriend to be just like the relationship they have with their buddies. You know what I mean? Where they're friends with their friends because they all like to play World of Warcraft, or they all like to go out and drink, or they all like to do whatever it is they do. And they're looking for a girl who has that. The thing about it is, a relationship, love, which is defined in many ways, has to be more than that. And so if all you're looking for is this one thing we have in common, that's like holding a relationship by a thread. Yeah. Because it must be more than that.
I think it's important to mention right now that the topic that we have right now being don't force it on her is like saying, say you have a decent relationship already, say she found you interesting for not these qualities that make you in some way subjugatable. But and if you're trying to force on another person, that's all on you. It's important to you, and why is it important to you? It's important to have a little bit of self-reflection. But
I also think it's just important to have well-roundedness.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for any social situation. You know, to be the kind of person who could walk into any social situation and have a conversation with anybody, where you can find common ground somewhere. Mm-hmm. If you're only interested in 2 or 3 things, you're not going to have that. It's like becoming a spy, Vince.
Yeah. What?
You know what I'm talking about. It's
like becoming a spy. We talking about Chuck?
No. It's like being a spy. It's like if you're a spy, if you're like putting on disguises and infiltrating places, you have to be able to pretend like you're other people, and so you have to have this constant knowledge of many things in order to pull that kind of thing off.
I mean, ideally,
that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you have to know everything. I'm just saying that it's good to have if nothing else, to have a good general knowledge of the world around you and what's happening.
You know, don't pigeonhole yourself into a position that you can't get back from it.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, you'd find a relationship where you value the other person as much as the other person values you.
Right.
And when you're in this relationship, don't try to force things on another person. And that's how geekdom fits into a relationship. This is something that is part of you. It does not define you. And if your partner wants to get into that stuff, you know, have it available. You know, here you go, sure. But for me, it's okay with, you know, as far as I'm concerned, my girlfriend likes superhero movies. And that's as far as I need it to go. Because that's evidence to me that she's okay with me reading this stuff. She just doesn't want to read a comic book. And there's a Pride and Prejudice comic book. She collects Jane Austen and Emily Bronte and things like this. And if she finds a really neat-looking edition, she's probably going to buy it. So, even though she already has it, maybe even a couple times over. But my point is, you got to be okay with her liking the things that she likes, or him liking the things that she likes.
And you have to show an interest.
And you have to show some kind of interest. And because it's a two-way street. Now, when you're in this relationship and you're this subjugated character, you're in a relationship that's ultimately going to fail, or you're just going to be in an unhappy relationship. I mean,
in what sort of relationship? What do you mean?
This subjugated where she or he is the powerhouse.
I see.
And it's like, for example, I don't know how many times I've seen a friend find a girlfriend and then come into the group of friends, or come back into the group of friends like, look, you guys are all stupid because you read comic books, but I still want to read them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, she's telling me what I am and am not to like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's dictating my taste to me.
Dude, there's a word for that we can't say on this show.
Well, we can say whipped.
Right.
But,
That's what that is.
And
I'm glad you said that.
But see, the problem is that you should not let somebody dictate your life to you, and you should not be okay with it if they are.
Yeah.
And
you shouldn't do that to the other person either. I mean, it's the same thing.
Something I really wanted to touch on. I think that sometimes these subjugatable people are their own social poison.
Okay.
Why can't they find a decent relationship? Why is it that you're sitting in your room pining for that one girl that you love so much? Well, it's because you're not ready yet.
Unattainability.
Yeah, maybe she's...
That's a huge theme in movies about teenagers and geeks looking for love, right? Mm-hmm. It's a huge theme of unattainability, where I want this girl because she's... Well, I think I want this girl because she's extremely attractive, but a lot of it is more of a status symbol, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
that's a huge theme.
You're not just looking for arm candy. I mean, if you're wanting a relationship, you should want a relationship, for the person.
Well, and just be realistic. Is this relationship going to work? I mean, are we two people? And there's no reason not to take somebody out if they'll go with you and see how it goes. But like after a while, you'll start to, when you talk to people and you see personality types, you'll start to go, well, yeah, she's an extremely attractive person, and I find her very interesting. She and I wouldn't get along.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Plenty of people like that, right?
There's a certain amount of meshing that needs to go along with your personality types.
You can't just go, I'm a guy, you're a girl, this should work out.
I think that this even happens with quote unquote beautiful people. Sometimes you'll find...
I don't know those. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm
sometimes you find... and I'm not saying this is across the board, of course. This isn't across the board with geeks. This isn't across the board with beautiful people. But with the beautiful people, I'm putting air quotes around those.
I have a song stuck in my head now. It's a Marilyn Manson song.
Song bomb. Right there.
You know what I'm talking about? Marilyn Manson's Beautiful People?
I don't actually like Marilyn Manson,
so
I don't know much
You don't?
about it.
That's unfortunate.
So I'm pretty certain I've heard it because I've heard some of his most popular stuff.
Beautiful people.
Yeah, I have heard that.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
But,
you just kept saying it, so it was getting stuck in my head.
But with these people, the beautiful people...
Beautiful people.
You have... They run into the situation where they say, you're attractive, I'm attractive, why isn't this working? And
yeah.
And then
kind of the Barbie Ken problem, right?
Like, why are you guys together? Well, because I found her attractive and we got together, and it seemed to be that she didn't initially hate me that much. So why are we still together? Well, because you assume that that's the way a relationship's supposed to work.
You think that happens in Hollywood?
I think
that's part of the Hollywood
everywhere.
problem.
I think that beautiful people do that, and I think the reason why there's so many people that are unhappy in their marriages is because they're married to somebody that they got married to for just attractive purposes, or because they thought that that's what a relationship was supposed to be. They say, oh, I'm a man, I'm supposed to fulfill the man parts, I'm going to mow the lawn, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to punch people in the face at bars. And the woman's like, well, I want a guy that does all that stuff, but I want to be gentle, and I want to be this stuff, but I also want to be the domestic person, but I don't want to be the domestic person.
Sure.
And because we're coming into a new age, and so people who define themselves by gender roles, or people who define that's almost a topic in and of itself.
It is, yeah, and you just don't have to. You don't have to be labeled.
Yeah.
And also, let's face it, and this is good. Part of this is, of course, because of how prominent the internet has become everywhere, on my desk, in my pocket, everywhere. Mm-hmm. Geekdom, air quotes, whatever fits into that, is so much more socially acceptable now than it ever used to be.
Yeah.
There is no reason that you have to be like that. You know what I mean? There's no reason that you have to allow yourself to have what I'm going to say is a somewhat outdated label. Mm-hmm. And really, was there any reason for it in the first place, right? But I mean, like it's an outdated label. Okay, look, I fit some geeky stereotypes. You fit some geeky stereotypes.
Yeah.
We once did a podcast on this that's not up anymore, and actually I was thinking about bringing it back. I actually went back and made a list of it again.
Oh, yeah.
And thought it'd be cool to do a podcast where we went back to the geeky stereotypes to see what we feel now, because that was 2 years ago when we did it. And anyway, I mean, like, Vince, you and I both wear glasses. We read comic books, yada yada yada. There are stereotypes that we fit into. But like you can say that for somebody who's interested in anything. You can find patterns, but that doesn't also mean that I can't talk to people who aren't into the things that I'm into. It doesn't mean that I can't go hold down a good job. It doesn't mean I'm stuck in my parents' basement, etc., etc. I don't have to work at a comic book shop. I mean, there's other things I could do. I have my interests, and so my interests have led me to where I am now. You know what I mean? But that's true of anything. I also think it's bad to think that just because you are big into comics and entertainment means that somehow you're not doing what you ought to be doing if you can't get into that field. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. I mean, like, there are tons of people who want to get into that. If you have other interests and you can't, and you want to be a writer or an artist and you can't get there, you should pursue other things too, so that you can make a living. I just wanted to throw that out there really quick too. It's not to say don't follow your dreams. It's just that
be practical.
Be practical also.
I just said practicable.
Follow multiple dreams if you have to.
Foster and nourish your creativity, but also remember that you got to pay the bills, and you'll be a much happier, more productive person if you are a happier, productive person.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, but I think this is an important thing to mention, because I think that above everything else, this is something that I think geeks should consider, is that they are their own social poison at times. They are the thing that is in their way of getting that relationship. Why is it that you can't find a person that's interested in you, or why is it that you can't find somebody who is that, or why is it you can't find somebody who's sane, or not controlling, or not smothering or mothering? Why can't this happen? Well, there is a certain, like, what was it? I've once heard somebody say, like, flies land on stink, there's a reason for it. So why is it that certain people are attracted to you, or why is it that people are drawn away from you, or repelled from you, rather? But I think that certain times, like for myself, growing up, the reason why I never had I'll admit that I've never had girlfriends. I've only had one, and as far as I'm concerned, she's it, and as far as she's concerned, I'm it. So I've never had girlfriends before. Reason why is growing up, I was the type of guy who would be over eager, would try too hard to please somebody, and an average person is not going to want somebody constantly in their face, constantly giving you too much attention.
Yeah.
You, for a lot of people, like, I'm a nice guy. Well, yeah, you are a nice guy. That's not what's being debated here. We're talking about whether or not you're a strong mate, because the person who needs the constant approval of their potential partner is essentially sucking energy from that person. It's saying, I need your strength to make me a whole person. And if that's what you're going through, then you're not necessarily ready for a relationship yet. I mean, certainly you can get ready, I guess, maybe for like trial and error. Sure, just keep trying. I'm not saying that you're not going to grow out of it. I'm saying that I think a lot of people do grow out of it. I think some people don't. But I think that it's important to realize that you need to be an individual as well as a person in a relationship, or an individual and a couple. And it's important to realize that sometimes being a couple or seeing yourself only within the confines of the couple is problematic.
And if you very early on are seeing a pattern, I mean, there's a difference between isolated incidents and patterns, but if you're seeing a pattern where the person you're with, be it because you're into geeky things or whatever it is not respecting you in the way that person should, that's not a relationship you should stay in. And I think that is 80% of people's problems that they get into bad relationships is one person or both people don't have enough respect for the other person, and they're in relationships for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's convenient, just because you guys managed to run into each other and let yourselves get through the first couple steps to the point that you can say we are now an item.
Yeah, it does not mean that you have to keep going if it's not working.
You're not married to the person. This is not an arranged marriage courtship phase.
And of course, there's a lot more. I mean, I don't mean to sit here and just spout out a bunch of random relationship advice, but because we were talking about relationships, I wanted to throw that out because I've seen that happen to so many people. And I'm just saying, have self-respect and have respect for the other person. And if both people don't have that, it's not going to work out.
And the main reason why I bring up this, not you guys, not our listeners specifically, but the people with these problems. The main reason why these people are their own social poison is because a lot of people are their own social poison. I was my own social poison for a while. I even retreated into myself for about 1.5 years, 2 years because I didn't want to have to deal with other people. I had my friends and I dealt with them, and I wanted a girlfriend, but I always thought, I had that mentality like, why does she not take the chance on me? Well, because you, meaning me in that particular instance, that's because I would have been an unwise choice. I would have been a person that would have been detrimental to my partner. So I've seen it happen so many times within the last 2 years. I've become aware of this. I've had enough time to reflect on it personally and develop these ideas on my own. And then I see it in practice.
Well, you think about it more when you're in a good relationship too.
True.
Because it's hard, and I mean you don't want to compare yourself to other people necessarily, but it's difficult not to. It's hard, and I mean but I think in a way it can be healthy depending on what it is. Where you see other relationships that are awful and falling apart, and you say why is mine working? And theirs isn't. Like what? And I mean, that's healthy because the idea is, what am I doing right that I could impart to them to help them out a little bit.
There's, for example, and it's not just people who are scrawny or overweight or pale because they spend all their time in their basement. It's not just these people.
Sure.
Here's an example, and maybe I'm showing somebody's cards here, but I know this guy who's a bodybuilder.
He'll remain nameless.
Yeah, and I don't think he watches our videos anyway.
Sure.
I know this guy who's a bodybuilder.
If he does, he may not get this far.
That's true. I know this guy who's a bodybuilder and a biochemist.
That's
both.
Awesome.
He's a former football player. He is.
How old is he?
He's about our age. He's between like 26 and 28 somewhere.
Sounds like he's done more than both of us in our entire lifetimes.
He is huge.
Mm-hmm.
He is the biggest geek.
Really?
You look at him and you think, man, that guy's a meathead. And then he opens his mouth, and it's not just smart guy that comes out. It's not like Professor Hulk. I mean, here's a guy who he opens his mouth and you think, wow, you have social problems.
Oh.
And what's interesting about this particular individual is that he relies a lot on his physical prowess to interact with other people. How does he hit on women? Well, he relies like, I'm hot. Well, no, you're beefy. What makes you attractive is that paired with your personality.
Yeah.
So he, to my understanding, has certain female issues. He was interested in this girl that I knew at the time, and I guess I still know her. I only knew her once and then never again. But he was interested in this girl.
I'm pretty sure she was real.
And, the pills I'm taking differentiate between reality and fantasy now. But this guy may or may not have been the Hulk. But no. Anyway, the point here is that here's a guy that was interested in this girl that I know, and he kept coming in and trying to start a relationship with her, and he had these huge fumbles where he basically is like, well, then can we still be friends? And of course, he's just trying to use that as a backdoor to get in, and it's not just people who are typical and ordinary. I saw this guy and I thought, there's a person who doesn't know what he needs to do in order to attract the other person. I fully believe that once he gets into a relationship...
because people are complex.
Yeah, allow yourself to be a complex individual. Allow yourself to appreciate your own feelings, and allow yourself to treat other people with respect, and allow yourself to treat yourself with respect and expect a certain amount of respect from other people. I mean, I'm not saying you need to go on this big tirade where you're not respecting me.
Yeah.
I'm saying realize what is and is not disrespect. Realize what is and is not just a small snafu that you have with another person during the day, and then know what to expect. So, because you don't need to go about carrying a bunch of burdens saying, that person disrespected me. He accidentally stepped on my foot.
No, it's not. No, it's not about. I mean, for people's attitudes should not be about whether or not other people are respecting them. It should be about you doing things for other people. It's just that if there's all I was saying earlier is if there's a really awful pattern and you can't fix it, you should go away. That's all. That's all. Or I don't mean if it can't be fixed, that's a whole nother story of getting in relationships and trying to save people. But anyway, we should wrap this up.
Yeah. Maybe I should say that just to cap off this big muscular biochemist.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He, I never really had any heart-to-hearts with this guy. I didn't know him that well, but I just saw him come in and make some mistakes, and I managed to what's the word? Look at something and then analyze it and figure it out. But and say, I think this is what the problem is. And people would come up to me and say, I don't like that guy. He creeps me out. And that guy would come up to me, and he and I would have the greatest rapport. Why? Because I understand him. He and I were the same beast at one point. And I don't mean that he and I were both bodybuilders or biochemists.
Right, no, I know what you mean, though.
But he and I suffer from some of the same issues, or suffered from some of the same issues. And he found a girl, and he managed to regularize. I saw the guy all the time. He seemed like a happy dude. It was just pleasing to me to see somebody's life manage to even out a bit. And so it's interesting that people who are quote unquote beautiful people can be geeks and have these social problems.
Yeah, like I said, people are complex.
So yeah, that's where I'm capping it off right there.
All right. Well, I guess this kind of turned into relationship advice with Cap and Vince, but that's okay. Anyway,
there is light at the end of the tunnel if you're having problems, and if not, it's just interesting to see what the other side of the fence is like. So, my advice is keep existing. Like that's my advice. Like, I don't really have any relationship advice. I just think that people need to realize that they have their own problems that make them more or less attractive, and then they extrapolate from there. That's the word I was looking for.
Extrapolate. There you go. Yeah. Well, when you broke it down the way you did, I couldn't think of it either. I was like, I don't know, Vince. I like the way you said it. It was great. Well, hey, thanks everybody for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast, and we'll have another one for you next week. I'm Captain Logan,
and I am Vince. Not Sarah.